The year is 476. Rome is in flames. The Ottoman Empire was destroyed, and its last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was dethroned by the barbarian king Odoacer. What was once one of the most powerful empires in the world now lives only in history. But what caused Rome's decline and destruction? Everyone knows that Rome was one of the largest empires that ever existed in humanity. During its territorial peak, it extended from England to Egypt. The Roman Empire had a growing economy and a formidable army. For the Romans, all people who were not Roman could be considered barbarians, and with the expansion of the empire, many of these people were assimilated into the Roman Empire. For many, Rome would be a 1,000-year empire, which, even with problems, would survive. North Africa was a strategic region of the Roman Empire, producing food and grains that would later be exported to the rest of the empire. Another part of great importance for Rome was its army, which during its peak reached 400,000 men, with close to 30% of the government budget being spent on soldiers. However, in certain periods, a large part of the Roman army was made up of barbarians. Who were assimilated into Rome, they were only loyal to money, and if they were not paid, they would revolt and loot. Politically, Rome was ruled by Theodosius I, who divided the empire into two regions, West and East, with each region controlled by his two sons. After the death of Theodosius, the East Roman Empire had begun an era of prosperity and stability, but the West Roman Empire was about to enter a crisis that Rome had never seen. The barbarians were not only at the gates, but also inside the empire. One of the greatest examples of barbaric revolts within the empire were Fritigern, and a few years later Alaric, who revolted with the Romans. After they broke an agreement, they began to invade several cities in the empire. And in the Battle of Adrianople, Valens, who was the Roman emperor, was killed, and the Roman army defeated. For examples like this, Rome ceded parts of its territories so that some barbarian people could live without attacking Rome. In 406, there was another new invasion of barbarian peoples against the Western Roman Empire. Led by Radagaisus, Rome managed to stop the invasion, but to do this it had to remove a large part of the army that was on the border of Germania, which caused many barbaric Vandals entered the empire. But just 4 years later, in 410, Alaric the Furrers and his army of barbarian people invaded the Western Roman Empire again, this time even sacking Rome. The Eternal City, which had been protected for more than 800 years, had been invaded. Not even Rome was safe anymore. At the same time, in the provinces of Britain, there were several revolts against Rome, due to the lack of military aid against invasions in that region. And shortly afterwards, the Roman province of Britannia fell and was never governed by Rome again. In the decade that followed, Rome focused on trying to reduce the number of barbarian revolts and invasions, granting greater freedom to the barbarian peoples who lived in the empire and even ceding large regions to them, as happened with the Visigoths and Suevi in 418. Rome was in crisis, financially, politically, and socially. To make the situation worse, in 436, the Huns, led by Attila, who for the Romans were barbaric peoples, began to expand across Europe, causing several barbarian peoples to enter Roman territories, fleeing from Attila's threat. By the year 440, the demographics of the Spanish and French regions of the Roman Empire had changed drastically, with large areas being inhabited solely by barbarian peoples, and as these peoples had been granted greater autonomy and freedom by Rome, once again the borders of the Empire Roman were reduced. The situation got even worse when the Vandals conquered North Africa, which was controlled by Rome, and which for the Romans was a strategic territory due to the amount of food, taxes, and soldiers that came from the region. In 454, Valentinian, Roman emperor, was assassinated. The empire that was already in crisis began to fall into ruins and be destroyed, both from within and without. The western region of the empire was in chaos. Rome had lost control of large regions to other peoples and kingdoms. In 475, Romulus Augustulus took over what was left of what was once the Roman Empire. But little did he know that the situation had already gotten out of control a long time ago, and there wasn't much to do. The barbarians were literally already at the gates. In 476, the barbarian Odoacer and his army invaded the Italian peninsula and defeated what was left of the Roman army and dethroned Romulus. Thus, the last Roman emperor was exiled, and Rome fell under the control of men they once called barbarians. But despite the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the eastern part continued to prosper and prevailed for almost another 1,000 years.